It's time to get chiseled with Rob Commodari.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chiseled. And why do we call it Chiseled? Because we're all a work in progress. I'm your host. I'm Rob Commodari. I'm also the author of the book, Better Than You Think, and co-authors of the book, Next Level Your Life and the Network Effect. Now, picture this. It's 2020, a small business owner in Oregon, surrounded by fear, uncertainty, and government mandates, makes a choice. She reopens her salon knowing full well the backlash that will follow. Overnight, her life is turned upside down. She becomes a national headline, a target of critics, and at the same time, a beacon of courage for all those who felt silenced. That woman is our guest today, Lindsey Graham, known as the Patriot Barbie. Her journey is not one of these, but of grit, grind, and glory. And if you're looking over my shoulder, you see my two signs, grit and grind, okay? She's faced public attacks, personal losses, and the weight of starting over. Yet, through it all, she's leaned on an unshakable faith that turned her trials into testimony. Today, she's an author, entrepreneur, activist, wife, and mom of three, unapologetically fighting for freedom, family, women, and children. Her story is one of defiance, resilience, and redemption. And today, she's here to share it with us. Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. I'm sitting here listening to the intro, and I'm like, ooh, who is this person?
Who paid me? How much did you pay me?
Oh, well done. You did great on what I wrote. Thank you.
Good stuff. So, yeah, I'm so glad you came out today. I mean, you have a huge following on social platforms. I think your main one's Instagram, right?
Yeah. Yep. Main's Instagram. I'm starting to catch up there on Facebook a little bit, but I don't love X or, any other Telegram, those difficult to navigate ones.
There you go. Well, look, I just appreciate being here, and you got a lot going on. So I just want to know, if you were going to share with us, I guess this the context of how you became the Patriot Barbie, and obviously we're going to get into what happened back in 2020.
Yeah, that's about when. So, like you said, in 2020, everyone remembers the businesses being locked down, schools being shut down, all that in April. Around May 6th, which was, I think, 6 weeks in. Yeah, they closed us down March 23rd. 6 weeks in, believe it or not, people were still closed out of fear from the government, and no one was reopening. And my husband and I had 6 businesses in Oregon, and we were doing the math, and I'm like, dude, we're going to go bankrupt. We are going to have to sell everything we own. 20 years of hard work down the drain for lockdowns. So I said, I'm going to open up my salon, and I'm going to work. I'm going to do hair. And I did. I was not political at the time. I was not walking closely with Jesus. It was just like I'm a hard-headed person, and I think that this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it. And it became this polarizing, media attracting story that this woman in Oregon was going to open up against lockdowns. And I didn't realize how dramatic that decision would be, and how dramatic it would be to be one of the first to open up against the government. Weird, right? That you say that and go, I'm going to do this life-altering thing. I had no idea the capacity that it would go to. But I learned quickly that there was a polarizing political agenda. Some people did not like that I was reopening and called me a murderer and a racist and all kinds of other crazy things. And then the other side said, you're a hero, you're brave, you've got our prayers. And I kind of went, whoa, this is weird. Some people literally think I'm murdering people, and some people think that this is heroic. And all I'm doing, to be honest, is hair. I'm just doing hair.
Yeah, right.
Let's be real. But that is when the memes started coming out. I got slandered in the media. Someone made a graphic with my face and said, I don't always play the Patriot Barbie, but when I do, I kill people. I kill people's grandmas, and I steal their money. And I was like, okay, first of all, none of that's true. Second of all, did you just call me the Patriot Barbie as an insult? Because I'm loving it. So I'm not really ditzy like that, but I was like, that's not an insult. I went and Googled Patriot, Googled Barbie, and I was like, you just called me a really attractive person that loves their country. And I find that not insulting. So just to be a pill, I went and changed all my social media to the Patriot Barbie, just kind of or you can't upset me anymore. And then it just like it got out of control. Like I would go on the news and they would say, "Oh, and she's going by the Patriot Barbie now." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Okay. And that is how this alter ego was born.
That's amazing. And in that moment, like when you just decided to stay open, you're like you were just being a rebel at the time. Is that correct? You weren't like you said, you weren't political at all.
No, no. And I had no idea, like, the governor of Oregon actually did a press conference and said that I had an agenda, that I was doing it for media attention, for publicity. It was a publicity stunt. And I remember thinking, the publicity is mostly bad. Like, why would I want to be slandered and get death threats and hate? But the reality is, I mean, I really did not know that it would turn into this global news story. And really, it was just kind of a like an Oregon, United States story. She's opening up against the lockdowns, but it went global because of what the state did to me. They continued to come after me. A mom of 3 young kids. My youngest son was 6 weeks old at the time, or maybe 8 weeks. I just had him, and they threatened to take my business away, my business license, my hair license, kick me out of my building, Class C misdemeanor, jail time, $50,000 a day fines. CPS came to my house. They threatened to take my 3 kids. And that story went international because people in America were like, this chick is doing hair and you want to like throw her in the gas chamber. This is how out of control this is. And so really, it's just wild how all of it went down. And of course, I didn't know any of that was going to happen, or perhaps I wouldn't have done it,
Well, it's funny because I heard you say at one point, you said this just fell in your lap. I was watching one of your Instagram reels, and you said it just fell into your lap. What, like how long did this go on before you decided to say, you know what, I got to get out of here. I can't take it anymore.
Out of Oregon?
Out of Oregon, yeah.
Not very long. So I opened back up May 5th. And then by September, so May, June, July, August, September, by September, we were moved out of Oregon. It took 5 months for the cancel culture in Oregon to destroy all 6 of the businesses that my husband and I had built. Because we didn't leave because of government. We left because the cancel culture said she's a murderer, she's a white supremacist, she's a nationalist, all of these things. And my stylists were getting death threats. Our tanning salons were getting, people were quitting and canceling. And so we just went, we don't have a life here anymore. This is, I don't even want to go out for dinner. I'm afraid someone's going to recognize me and spit in my food or poison me. It was just a horrible cancel culture. So that's why we left.
Well, you don't even think about that. Like you just said, somebody's going to poison you, spit in your food. I mean, I guess the reality, that could happen because people are that vindictive that it could happen.
Yep, they are. My salon was attached to a parking garage, and there was a woman down the street who was the complete political opposite of me. And she was very violent, and she was sharing my photos everywhere and doing calls to action to harass me. And I kept thinking, like, if I leave the salon one night, walk through this parking garage, everyone knows where I am. Anyone could easily attack me and target me. So I was living in fear in Oregon, and not in fear, which is crazy, not in fear of the government, who had a lot more power, and not in fear of COVID, the virus that they blew out of proportion. I was afraid of my peers. I was afraid of my fellow community who said, we disagree with your decision to work. So therefore you are worthy of hate, harassment, and threats and slander.
Well, so then, I mean, you lost some personal friends, I imagine too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot.
And then when you opened a salon, was everybody, you said people quit and you lost customers. Did everybody in the salon decide to stay? Or they said, you know what, Lindsey, you're crazy, I'm leaving?
When I first reopened, there were only 4 girls that said, well, if you're going to work, I'm going to work. And they did it more quietly. Like I wouldn't tell the media who was in there with me. And then that number like grew a few as they realized, oh, they're not actually punishing us. They're just threatening to punish us. And then when they came after my kids, which was not very far into the process, it was just like a week, maybe 4 days, 5 days. The girls kind of went, yeah, I can't do this. Like I can't have the government come after me the way they came after you. And so they would just all quietly go home and they would work at home. But when the cancel culture started, they all left, every single one of them, like, except for one, my friend Melissa, who I am friends with to this day. She stood with me.
So then you leave Oregon, you go to Arizona, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then at that point, did you like open up another salon? Did you guys like, we got to recalibrate here. We got to regroup. What are we going to do from here? Was that what was going through your head?
No, I mean, we're definitely like, we got to regroup, but we didn't know what. The mentality and the, I don't want to say depression, but like the darkness that I was living in, when it feels like an entire nation hates you, because that's what they did to me. They made me feel like the people that hated me, and I'll just call them the left, radical leftists, they hated me. And so they made sure that I felt like there were no other positive voices. It was just hate. Like, no one likes you. Get out of this town. You're a murderer. You're not welcome here. You're not a pillar of this community like you used to be. And so I just was in a really dark place. And when we moved, I couldn't even think about opening another salon, because it was like, then all they would do is come after me again and then just ruin what I build here. So I'm not hiding away, but I don't know what the next step is. And that's where it became beautiful, because, we see in the Bible a lot of broken people who have to be at like literal rock bottom before they will call out to God. And I was raised in a Christian home, and I have a beautiful testimony, a beautiful and sad testimony. And I wasn't sharing that with people in Oregon. I wasn't sharing that with the girls in my chair. And so at this moment in my life, I have now lost everything that I was working for, that I held dear, financially, earthly. And I sat in my car and I was like, okay, Lord, I was taught that you love me, that you have good plans for me, and you work all things for good. These are all things that I believe. So what's happening where you're literally taking everything from me, and I have to believe that there's a reason, and it's like the worst thing in my whole life. So I'm like supposed to praise you in this. And so when I got to Arizona, like, the Lord told me to write a book through 4 different people in a 12-hour period. And I was like, write a book about what? Defying the government? Like, that was the last 4 months of my life. That's like nothing. It'll be like the tiniest book ever. But he told me. So I was like, all right, whatever, bro. Like, sat down at my laptop, just started writing. And every day I just sat down and I was like, all right, where do I start in this story? And I don't even remember where I started, but it ended up being my entire testimony, because as I was writing, I was like trying to explain how people, not myself, people had said, you're this hero. You're so brave, and you stood up to the government alone. How did you become this brave person? And I'm like, well, in my 20s, I did this and the Lord rescued me, but that enabled me to be stronger. And I could see the government abuse because I was in an abusive relationship, and here's what that looks like. And I'm just writing and writing. And I guess, this part of my life played a role in me becoming brave and strong and independent. And there were some things I was like, I don't want to write that, Lord. Like, my dad's going to read this. This is not a pretty part of my life. Like, the liberals are going to love this if I put this in print. And he's like, just write it. Just write it. And I was like, all right, I'll edit it out later. But when the book was done, and you're going to die because you've written books, I sent it off to the editor. I rearranged it a little bit, and then I went to print. And I, to this day, have never never read my book from front to back. Like, never.
Wow.
Yeah.
I how come?
I just haven't sat down to do it. And I just am like, I did what I was told. God told me to do it. I obeyed. That's what matters, right?
Yeah.
And I should audio record it. Ken keeps telling me to audio record it. So if I did, I would end up reading it from front to back, but I just haven't done that either. And I just said, here you go. There it is. There's the book. So yeah, that was the beginning of, I'm trying to remember the original question that you asked. Isn't that funny? I'm like, what was this question I'm answering? That started like that. I'm not going to go back into hair. I'm not going to go back into owning a gym or tanning salons. When I wrote the book, I thought it was the Lord telling me to write a book so that I could write a book and, be a bestseller and make a lot of money, whatever. But what happened was, in writing that, I discovered the Lord has a bigger purpose for me. Like, he really did let the cancel culture ruin my life, because that was not the life that God would have for me. And now I need to fall into this next chapter, whatever that chapter is. And in writing this book, I discovered this was all for a purpose. And my whole life has been for a purpose. And my whole testimony has been to prepare me for whatever it is that he's doing.
So whatever that is, and you don't know yet, but it's interesting. You said you were brought up Christian, but you really weren't all in, so to speak, spiritually, or right. Mm-hmm. And then this happens, and how long was that dark period of time that you went through before you sat down and you were in the car and you felt God telling you to write a book?
So the dark period started around, I think it was June or July, whenever the George Floyd riot started. Mm-hmm. That's when Antifa had said they were going to come assault me and burn down my salon. And I said no, and I protected my salon with 400 armed motorcycle clubs and ex-military and veterans and myself. And that's when they started canceling me. So that was around, I would guess around June. Actually, we know when George Floyd was killed September 10th. That is,
I don't remember the date. Yeah.
Because that's when Charlie Kirk was killed. They were killed the same day.
Oh,
no,
wow.
They have the same. No, they have the same birthday. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay.
I was going to say that doesn't make sense, because that had started around June. So June, July, August was just nonstop hate and threats and violence and attacks and threat and hate and violence, media, publicly, personally. And when we drove over the Oregon border, I was like, I just felt this weight lift. It was wild. It was so surreal. I just took a deep breath and I was like, okay, we are out. We are free. And there was something, I think, spiritual about, at the time, Oregon was on fire too. I don't know if you remember that happening right after all of this crap. It was on fire. My house was a mile from the fires. We thought our house would burn down, which we had just sold. But we loaded up the car and the skies were completely black. So we're driving and it's almost like we're driving out of like a dark, spiritual, satanic realm. That's what it felt like.
Wow. Yeah, and it's got chills.
Yeah. And I was just like, when the skies started, we started getting farther away from Oregon, the skies started clearing. And it was almost like just a heavenly analogy of like, you are free from that. And it's not like, oh, I ran and I ran scared and now I'm safe. It was like, now that you're safe, you're going to be louder and bolder and stronger, because you're not going to be drawing the windows. You're not going to be scared to go out. They've taken everything from you that they can, everything. Now there's nothing holding you back from saying whatever needs to be said. And that is how it felt.
So when you're feeling those thoughts, are you thinking in that moment that's God talking to you the whole time?
I think so. I think it's just like that whisper, where people say, the Lord told me. And I'm like, he never like says, Lindsey, write a book, but like that Holy Spirit kind of like, because, when we think how the Holy Spirit sounds, you really have to be discerning. Like the devil talks to you too. Demons talk to you. So which is it? And sometimes I think, well, let me make sure it's God, because if it's my flesh wanting to do something, I don't want to operate in the flesh and then give God credit when he's like, that's not what I told you to do. So like writing a book, for example, I'm like, okay, Lord, I need confirmation. And the confirmation was that fourth person, which was ridiculous. 3 people had already told me. And I was like, one more, Lord, one more. And he gave it. But it's like that Holy Spirit kind of like dropping little driplets into your head and you can hear them, but you have to sit back and discern, like, is this my flesh? Is this a demonic spirit? Or is this literally the Lord leading me into the next step?
Yeah, it's like the difference between the desires of the heart and the desires of the flesh, right?
That's right. Yep.
I got to ask this question. I got so much here that I'm jotting notes down while we're talking here. Have you read the book This Present Darkness? Have you read that book?
Mm-mm.
So it's a book. It's a story, but it's about the spiritual warfare that goes on above us, both demonic and angelic, and how they're fighting each other while we're fighting each other. And they're always at it. Like I totally believe right now as we're talking, there's angels above, right? I believe that. Yeah. And so I was going to bring that up, but so what was the turning point? Like you said, you heard him, not not audibly, but you heard him say, "Hey, write this book," but you weren't totally all in yet with Christ, right?
I think actually the moment that I sat in my car in Oregon and I realized my life is over here, like everything that I have, like my identity, what I am known for, what I wake up and do is I wake up, I go get my coffee, I go to the gym, I go do hair. I boss babe all day. I do hair. I owned like the biggest salon in Oregon, made a ton of money. Like we were ready to retire. Honestly, we were ready to retire. Like it was like we were at the peak of our career. When you lose it to that extent, I'm sitting in my car and going, everything I've worked for is gone. Everything I've known for is gone. I don't know who I am. I don't know why you did this, but I trust you. That was the moment I feel like the Lord said, there you are. Because you can praise me all day long because you're making money and you've got a nice house and you've got healthy kids and a great car. Of course you're going to praise my name. I've given you everything. You lack for nothing. Why wouldn't you? But in the moment when you have nothing to be thankful for, or it feels like you have nothing to be thankful for, will you still say, I praise you, I trust you, you have my life, I believe in you? And that is like, to me, without knowing, I was being tested, I passed the test. And from that moment on, I was like, oh man, I'm excited. Like I just lost everything, but God is doing something better. So what could possibly be better than a life I already freaking loved so much? And I'm living it now.
That's great stuff. Are you familiar with the story of Job in the Bible?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. As you're talking, that's exactly what I'm thinking that she went through.
Yep.
You know, so you made a point. Like, what can I be thankful for? You said it feels like you have nothing to be thankful for. Like anytime something negative happens, well, perceived negative. I like to say perceived negative because if you look into it and you find a silver lining, there's always something good that comes from something negative. Let's just say, right?
Yes.
And so, like when something negative happens, I'm like, what can I be thankful for right now? Right now, I don't care if it's the food on my table, the hairs on my head. And what can I be thankful for right now? And I think it's important to be able to do that because it takes your mind away from what you want, what you had, and what you have no longer to, what do you have right in front of you right now? You had your husband and your kids, and you had your life, and it's something to be grateful for, no matter what's going on. So, I got to share this one thing with you. You said you lost your identity. You asked yourself the question, "Who am I?" Right? Because I got a story for you to share, but how did you get around? How long did it take you to get through this identity crisis of who Lindsey Graham is or was?
I would say, and this is how God works. It was through the book, because the whole writing of the book had nothing to do with book sales or writing a book or being an author. Like I'd never had that desire at all. That's also how I knew that it was God telling me to write a book. So I was like, I have no desire to write a book. By the end of it, I had recognized the Lord has created me for something greater than what I was doing, but I was just so content doing it. He couldn't talk me out of it. I could never leave that. I was content. I was too content. But by the end of it, I realized, what matters more to me now is being happy, being a good mom, being a proud Christian, and speaking the truth when it's unpleasant for others, when it goes against the narrative. Because really all this came down to is, I'm not saying, and this is me in 2020, I'm not saying COVID's not real. I'm not saying people aren't dying. I'm not saying I'm not going to get sick. I'm just saying I'm not willing to go bankrupt because the government tells me I'm not allowed to choose to be safe. I get to choose to be safe, right? I disagree that I should have to give up my freedom to choose whether or not I work or put myself at risk, or my customers get to put themselves at risk. That's our choice. And that's just truth. And what I realize is if you have things to lose, you're afraid to speak truth if it's unpopular. And I ended up losing all of that. And so then when it came time to speak truth, I'm like, you've already canceled me. I got nothing to lose. Like, I'll say whatever I want. And that new identity came through writing the book and realizing, oh my gosh, this was a gift. And my identity is not in how much money I make, or how big of a salon I have, or how famous I am, or how popular I am. It has to do with being a daughter of the King, and being a mom, and raising my family. And that's like my ultimate calling.
Yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, because we all get caught up in the identity piece. And I did a speech one time. I called it identity theft. And there's two types of identity theft. It's the one where we all know they steal your credit card, your social security number, and they use your identity to steal money and your whatever they take. The other identity theft is the identity we let be stolen from us. When we let somebody, maybe we want to compare ourselves to somebody else. We want to live like that instead of into who we are. So when we get away from who we are and living who we're supposed to be, we're letting our identities be stolen. That's what I believe. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I totally agree. And I think that a lack of identity is also a spiritual war. It's like a direct attack from the devil. It's what we see in the trans ideology, because your true identity is male or female. You are a daughter of the King, or you are a son of the King. You are a prince, or you are a princess. But God created us man and woman in his image. And when you take your own image and distort it and say that I was a mistake, it's a violation of your actual identity in God. And so the devil, if the devil can convince you that who you are and who you were created to be is not good enough, then your entire identity, which should be solidified in that image of God, is blown up, and you have nothing else really that's solid in your life. You have nothing real. Your hair color can change, your makeup can change, your figure can change, your personality can change, your choices every day can change, but your identity is forever. And if that is not solid, then you'll never be able to confidently execute a relationship with Jesus, because you don't even know who you are.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's a great segue, but we're going to take a quick break, and I want people to marinate on that for a minute, and we'll be right back.
Chiseled is presented by the Commodari Group of eXp Realty, led by your host, Rob Commodari. Are you planning to buy or sell? We know the process can feel stressful and frustrating. That's why Rob and his team focus on providing a personal touch and the best service and guidance during your transaction. The Commodari Group are top-tier professionals who deliver spectacular customer service. They provide expert advice on accurately pricing your home and making the entire process smooth and seamless. They simply get it done. Here's the connection to Chiseled. Many of the amazing guests you hear on this podcast are part of Rob's extended referral network. While the Commodari Group serves the Baltimore area, Rob can connect you with superb representatives across North America. Clients rely on this network because Rob actually cares about you and your family, treating your experience as if it was his own. Don't settle for less than the best. If you need a trustworthy and knowledgeable agent locally or across North America, Rob is the guy to call. Contact the Commodari Group of eXp Realty today. Call 410-817-7050 or email Rob directly, rob@talktorob.com.
So welcome back. Thank you for that last piece on identity. And I want to share this story with you, because we lose our way sometimes, and it's hard to, you asked the question, who am I, right? So years ago, I went to an event back in 2005, and the guy was talking about comparing and competing, right? And sometimes when we compare ourselves to others, we lose our identity, like I said earlier. So he was talking about that poison that exists inside of us when we do that. So I was comparing myself to somebody, and I was like, why am I not getting the attention he's getting? Why am I somebody? Why am I, they call me somebody I'm not when I'm really Rob? And so when I heard this and I went through that, I leave this conference and I went into a funk, and I'm like, I don't even know who I am, because I'm always comparing and competing. I'm competing for attention, and I'm comparing to others. And so I'm feeling this like low stuff. Somebody asked me a question at the office one time. I said, you're asking the wrong person, because I don't even know who I am right now. And I didn't get depressed. I was just like in a funk. And so for about, gosh, this went on for like a couple of weeks, right? And so I'm like, I can't get out of this funk. What do I need to do? So I went in my bathroom. I stood in front of the mirror. I'm like, all right, step outside of yourself, Rob, and see who you are. And I stepped outside of myself. I'm like, okay, I'm looking down at myself, and I'm like, it wasn't working. So I was in the funk the next day, and I'm like, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way, right? And it was like a light bulb went on, right? The next morning I get up, I'm like, I got to see myself through God's eyes. So I stood up in front of the mirror, and I looked at myself. I said, take a step back and see yourself through God's eyes. And man, I had tears running down my cheeks, and I'm like, holy smokes, he's got me in the palm of his hands. I thought about the poem with the footsteps. I'm like, he's got me. He's got me. All I need to do is put my identity in him and who he made me. Yep. And then life changes. And it just, Lindsey, it opened up a world for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had to go through that to get to that. And it was just an amazing experience. And when you said that you had to ask yourself the question, who I am, you just made me think of that and wanted to share that with you.
That's an amazing story. And it's so true, because I think too many people, we do put labels on things and classes on things. And it's so easy to go, I speak on the same subject. Why did she get the role of keynote and I didn't? Or, why did so-and-so get invited on the podcast and I didn't? And it's just such a simple answer. And we don't even tell ourselves it, because that's not what God wanted for you. That wasn't your path. You have something different. And why do you think that their path is better? Yours could be better in the long run. You just don't even know it yet. You're telling God to elevate you to a place that he's like, if I elevate you, then you can't go elevated here. What would you like?
Yeah.
Like, Lord, take the wheel. I'm sorry. And I think about the things that we, in that insecurity, the things that we do as humans, and we overreact and we try to take control. And what did we ruin in God's plan or set ourselves back? Because it's like, you should have left that alone. I've got you, like you're saying, I've got you.
Yeah, it's powerful, because look, I was born and raised Catholic because I, like, quote unquote, had to be. I was brought up that way. But there was a time when I'm like, I love being Catholic, and I'm not worried about what everybody else is, but I love being what I am, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn more about my faith, and to me, it's just this spiritual journey that he's taking me on, he's taking you on, and if everybody can just open their eyes and their hearts to know that God's taking them on a journey for them and for him, to praise his name, right? But it's a journey for you that he's taking you on. And I just think about when you were talking about writing a book, and I'm like, she's got to write for an audience of one. You said there was a time and you wrote for an audience of one, because I think that's what God asked you to do. And I don't know if that's the answer, and that's what I believe. Yeah. You write this, and now it's going to help so many people and inspire so many people. So you got to feel good. Oh, come on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and how awesome too, that like at the end of the book, I kind of looked at it and I'm like, it was supposed to be about defying the government. It's over 300 pages long, and it is a legit like testimony. And so, I mean, I pass it out, I give it away. It's like, I want people to see how God has worked in my life. That's even if the ugly stuff is in there, even if you look at me differently afterward, if it brings you closer to recognizing that, like, you can just see the work of God in my life, that is what matters more to me.
Yeah. So when you look back now, right, because you said all this started in like 2020, 5 years ago, right? And you look back before that, do you ever sit there and you take it all and say, man, he was working on me here, he was working on me there, he was doing this, he was doing that? Do you ever take that time to do that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So listen to this. I'll tell this little story. I was a thespian when I was younger. So I loved doing all the drama and the choir, junior high, elementary school, musicals. I was in a girl choir. I was in the church choir. I was in the church drama, like you name it, acting and singing. If I could do it, that's what I wanted to do. And I wrote poetry, and I have a 1-inch binder of poetry that I wrote as a child also. I love to write. And you know what? I did not grow up to be an author. Like I'm not an author for a living. Clearly I've authored a book now, 2 books, but I didn't grow up to be an actress and I didn't grow up to be a singer. So you could kind of go, a good thing I had fun doing that stuff. Like I trained a lot. My mom put a lot of money into my musical training and my acting and I did modeling, but what was the point, right? But listen to this. I was not utilizing those skills as a hairstylist, correct? That's fair to say. Now, isn't it interesting that the Lord said, you're done with all of that. And I need you to be an influencer and you have to be comfortable on screen. And also you're a keynote speaker now. You need to be comfortable on stage. Going to need to be comfortable in front of crowds. And also you'll need to be able to write speeches. So good thing I had you equipped for all that, right? Like, whoa, I get goosebumps. I think those are the skills he was curating and mastering in me my entire childhood that had no bearing on my last career, the one he took, but the life that he wants, which is, hey, I'm going to need you to drop all that and be speaking truth on stages in front of big crowds and on a social media following of over 500,000. Are you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Guess what? Like, you already knew that. Isn't that just like, that's just like full circle.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Like you said it earlier, it fell into your lap. And where do you see this going now? I mean, you're very outspoken. I love it. In fact, when you first walked into the room when we did the book launch event with Ken Wallace, and I saw your necklace, it says Jesus on there. I'm like, I got to talk to this gal. Yeah.
She's a believer.
And then it was just. It's very comforting to know there's a bunch of people, and that's a special group too. There's definitely everybody I think is like-minded there. Mm-hmm. But and then you got up there and spoke, and then I had a chance to get up there and speak, and then when Glenn, he made the comment, I'm tooting my horn here, and he said, you got energy in your voice. Mm-hmm. He goes, you got energy in your voice, and that's look. I told you I'm an introvert. I'm a coached outrovert, if you will. And I know that I started reading in 1990, and I'm like, man, I want to share this stuff with people. And I held it in, and I waited, 20 years to write a book. And so it's just like it's God working in us, and you have to believe that. And when you believe that, you just know it's gonna work. And that voice, like you said, you have to be comfortable and confident to be on that stage, to be on video. And I feel like I used to be that shy guy and insecure guy. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it is what it is, and if you really want to do his work, you got to be willing to talk it. You got to be willing to talk it. Yeah. And regardless of what people say, think, or do. And I used to always worry about what people think, and I still do sometimes. So I want to be like you when I grow up.
I think you are. I think if you step back and see God in your eyes, he's going to be like, why do you keep telling people you're an introvert?
Well, I say no longer. I mean, by nature.
Yeah. I think you're doing just fine.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. So, like, what do you do? What do you do on a daily basis? If I could ask, as far as your proclamation to Jesus.
Ooh, so I do, and I do Slack, of course, because I'm human. I do a daily devotional on my Instagram stories every single day. I'm actually getting ready to launch a Saturday morning women's Bible study online, and I haven't done it yet. And I have no good real excuse. Like, the Lord is telling me to do it, I think. And all I have to do is promote it on my social media. And I just haven't even done that. I think it's because the minute I promote it, I'm like, that means I got to show up Saturday morning. So it's like the Bible study is ready. The graphic is ready. I need to pull a trigger. I need to test the systems and make sure it's all good. But, I count on things like this, like having these real conversations with people for like sound bites, because the Holy Spirit moves when you're not trying to play a part. And there really is no playing a part on my Instagram. I'm very authentic. Clearly some content has to be like staged out and like, I'm going to put the phone up and I'm going to record this and write this. But sometimes I just get like downloads from the Lord and like messages that I think are like, everybody knows this, but then I record it anyway. And it's just like, people, oh, thank you for saying it. No one's saying it. And I'm like, man, like, how cool is it that I get to use my platform for God to speak through me, or for him to give me messages that do empower people that need that message in that moment. And I wouldn't know that otherwise, you know? And then I run a women's fashion brand, Pretty Little Patriot. And that is, that's taken up a lot of my time right now, because I just moved into a new city in Texas, and the community is obsessed with my brand. And I'm like doing all these events and all these vendor booths. And I'm like, okay, this thing is blowing up hard, which I love. But it's also a faith-based brand. So like all of the merch is either patriotic or Jesus. And it's a way to, it's so crazy. I think it's normal that I would use my company to glorify God. It's totally normal for me. I'm not going to start another company and get canceled. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm a conservative and I love Jesus, right?
Uh-huh.
People are so blown away at how bold my brand is in Jesus. And so it's attracting people, because they're like, this culture of like trying to be silent about your beliefs is not cute anymore. It's not cute. I want to know where you stand. I want to shop with people who believe what I believe. And so I'm able to glorify God through that too, and like minister to women in my fashion brand.
Right. Well, so I got to ask this question. If somebody does it, like you say you're a radical, did you say radical conservative? Is that what you said? Or you're...
I didn't say that, but I probably am. Yeah.
So let's just say you're a conservative. So if somebody's like a liberal on the other side, are you okay having a conversation with them?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. That's like my jam. And I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and I'll still try. It is usually met with, by the end of it, they're calling me a name, or they're cussing me out. And I'm like, all right, well, this is why these conversations don't work most of the time. But then I've had some really great conversations too. It's interesting though. Like the point of the conversation is never like I'm right and you're wrong. The point of the conversation is, hear my beliefs, because you should have these beliefs. And if you knew Jesus, you would too. And let me introduce you to Jesus. And I don't expect you to vote the way I vote, but if you knew Jesus, you would vote differently. You would choose life. You would choose freedom. You would choose not mutilating children. Like your choices would change because you knew the God that created us in his image. So it's always like, I mean, the goal is not to change their mind. The goal is to change their heart.
Yeah, that's powerful. Change the heart. It's funny when I pray at night, I ask him to grow my heart stronger and to change the hearts of those who have hardened hearts. You know, I ask that all the time, because you got to have that heart for it. So you know, if you're having that conversation, like I'm thinking, unfortunately, with the recent death of Charlie Kirk, you know, does that inspire you to be more outspoken? Because I mean, you're very outspoken. Does it inspire you to be more so, to take more of a stand, to bring more of this to people, to believe? And even so, with that said, are you willing to have more of those conversations with people that may believe totally opposite than what you believe?
Yeah. In fact, I talked to Kristen Mercer Hawkins. She is the head of Students for Life. And I had volunteered to go do college visits and speak on the pro-life topic, because I have an abortion story in my 20s. And I think, you know, who better to go talk to these women about abortion than someone who has had one and regrets it immensely and lives with that pain and regret? Who better to say, I'm not coming from a place of judgment, because I did it. And let me tell you, as a woman, what it did to my life and how it hurts me to this day. And I would still do that. I still plan to do that. I don't know that I can get much bolder. I mean, I'm the Patriot Barbie.
Yeah, right.
But it's not going to stop. I mean, if anything, it just reiterated and confirmed the need for people to continue to speak up boldly for their beliefs. And so I'm honored to be someone. There's no condemnation for people that aren't, but I'm honored to be someone that's like, I'm already in the fight, as opposed to like, all right, it took you assassinating my leader to be ready to say one thing online. I'm like, I'm honored that I already went through that fire and I've been in this fight, but I'm super excited to see more people come alongside and join in the fight too. I think that's going to be epic.
Yeah, it is. I think somebody said this is a revival. I heard that the other day on the memorial service. So you know, it's funny you talk about being bold, and like I remember, I'll share the story. I don't think I've ever shared this, especially you know, on public venue. But Yeah, so I was a freshman in junior college, right? And I was taking a speech class. And what I would do, I would just look things up in a book, and I try to memorize what I read or what I looked at, and I give a speech, and I was failing bad. Really. And so I had one speech left. I had a D in the class. I had one speech left. And I know there's people who don't agree with what I'm getting ready to say here, but I had one speech left, and I went to Catholic high school, and I remember him doing a class talking about abortion. And so I went back to my religion teacher back at my senior year, and I said, "Hey, do you still have those slides?" So here I'm in a public junior college, and I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this presentation based on when that sperm and egg meet, that's life, right? And so I started from 24 weeks, after conception, and I brought it back, 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 and I brought it back when the sperm met egg. And I mean, I showed some graphic pictures in there, right? And I brought it back when the sperm had egg, and I stopped it right here. I said, "You tell me that's not life."
Mm-hmm.
And I got a standing ovation.
Yeah.
In school, right? And I got an A in a class. Right?
Yeah.
But I was scared to death at first to share that with in that environment, And I'm like, I felt God saying, "This is what you got to do. This is what you got to do." And again, there's people that have beliefs, and what if this? What if that? What would you do here? What would you do there? I just believe that's life. That's life, and it's hard for me. It's hard not to believe it's life. So you made me think of that story. So I figured I'd bring it up.
Good for you. You know what's funny is in high school, my senior debate, which was like the majority of our grade, my senior debate was on why abortion is so horrific, like why I'm pro-life, why abortion is murder. And then, of course, that's ironic because years and years later, I made myself the victim of abortion. But all of it just goes to show you were brave in that moment, and you spoke on something that even right now you're like, oh, some of you won't like it. And it's like, you know what? Some of you won't like it, but you're entitled to your horrific opinion that women should be able to choose at any point to kill their child. Why is that opinion worthy of being outspoken and mine is not? And that's where I think the disconnect is your opinion is valid, very valid. And unfortunately, so is theirs. And we're all free to say it. But the stigma in our culture right now is that whatever we say is hate and whatever they say is freedom. And I think it's so incredible that we can now consciously decide to be brave and say, I'm surrounded by people who are not going to like what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, it's brave and bold, right? And but you got to go out on a limb sometimes and say what you believe. And so that's awesome. So I got to ask you, I know we got to wind this up here in a minute or two. So now, like you told us in a story that you had these dreams of having this big Barbie doll type house, right?
Yeah.
And now you're like, that's not important to me anymore. Do you remember saying that?
Yep.
And you got all this attention on social media. What changed right there that says, I want this and now I don't need it. It's not important to me.
I think living it, like I'm living in a small manufactured home with an above ground pool and a trampoline, and the kids are in a homeschool co-op, and the simple things in life, just having peace and getting up and having time to cold plunge and worship. And, I lived that boss babe life back in 2020. And there was never any time for anything. Work always came first, and paying the bills and making the money. And I realized, we're living pretty much debt free right now. And I'm sitting here going, man, it's relaxing. I don't think I want to go out and pay a lot of money and get into a lot of debt so I can be stressed about how much I have to work anymore. That doesn't sound fun. And that's probably just maturity talking. Maybe it's age. But I'm thinking I'm too old and tired to want to force myself to hustle. I hustle right now. Yeah, I hustle because I want to, but I don't need to. I hustle because it's in my nature. If I go out and decide I'm building the $1 million Barbie dream house, guess what? I got to go to work. So when my kids say, can you come out and play in the pool? I'll be like, no, I have to go do this, because I got to make the money to pay this mortgage. I don't want to do that to my kids. I want to be like, I'll come play. I'll hustle when I get back.
Good for you. I totally love hearing. I remember when I first got in the real estate business, I was, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And I'd be going to appointments in the summer at 8 o'clock at night. And I see a dad and his kid playing catch on the lawn. And I'd shake my head. I said, Rob, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
I remember those days. So, hey, as we wrap it up here, Lindsey, thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for your boldness, your bravery, and everything you're doing, your courage. Thank you for that. But I got to ask you this last question. Where else in your life going forward do you think God needs to chisel you?
Ooh. I knew that the podcast called Chiseled, there would be a deep question. I think he still needs to chisel me in humility. I still think so. I'm in a small town, and it's so interesting. I have this huge online following, which could give you a big head. I'd like to think it doesn't give me a big head. I'm not any more important than anyone else. People just apparently like the content I make. But, I'm learning that the people in my real life around me in my town, they matter more. Like, those are my real friends. That's my real community. And so I'm hoping that he will chisel me into, it doesn't matter what's going on online. Like, you are not a public figure. You're not Instagram famous. Like, just be present and be focused here and be okay with that.
There you go. I love that answer. Hey, you said it a couple times today. You said, I just want to know that you matter, others matter. My buddy Mark Burdetti's got this movement, the You Matter movement. So you might be seeing that backwards, but it's called the You Matter movement. And so everybody matters. So, Lindsey, if people wanted to get a hold of you, obviously you have a huge following on Instagram. You said you're building up your Facebook. How would they get a hold of you? I think I just
call me. No, just kidding. Don't call me. They can follow me on Instagram, the.patriot.barbie. Facebook is the Patriot Barbie, and my website is thepatriotbarbie.com.
That guy did you a big favor and gave you a big gift when he said that years ago.
Yes, he did.
That's crazy.
Yes,
That's
I thank
crazy.
him.
Amen. Right. Well, look, Lindsey, thank you again. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time. And until next time, everybody, let's go get chiseled.